Hello, everyone. It's a beautiful spring morning here in Colorado, and I couldn't be more pleased to be spending it with Denise Hill, editor-in-chief of New Pages, and an incredible online resource for writers and poets. Denise is a two-year college English professor specializing in developmental writing and world mythology. She began writing reviews for New Pages in 2003, then became the review editor and eventually the editor-in-chief. Her favorite part of working at New Pages is helping people connect with resources and making decisions about commas. She manages the Young Writers Guides and has assisted countless young editors as they begin new publications. Denise enjoys the creative process of writing and drawing cartoons daily. And last but not least, she is a fan of double IPAs and Belgian triples. Nothing less than 10% is her gold standard. Welcome, Denise, and thanks for taking some time to chat with me for Telltale Poetry submission interview series.
Right on.
So, yeah, such a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you. And I'm glad you're enjoying good weather because here in Michigan, it is cold and rainy. We turned the heat back on today, I'm sad to say.
Oh, goodness. No, it's a bluebird day, and my air conditioning will probably be kicking on around 1 o'clock.
Okay.
It'll be in the 80s today.
Yeah,
But it's lovely. It's lovely. So, ooh, all right.
Lucky.
So we met in kind of a funny way because, we run in the same literary circles online and social media, but we originally connected because we both share a similar love for beer and have that in our bios, which I just thought was so funny. So I know you mentioned, obviously you like double IPs and strong beers, but do you have a favorite beer or brewery you'd recommend for, our listeners to try?
Yes. As we like to say, we are living in a great age for beer. And Michigan is a great craft beer state. So anybody who's looking to do brewery tours, come on to Michigan because we got them. All of my favorites come from our small brews here in Michigan. One of my top favorites comes from Short's Brewery. Up north, it's called Huma Lupa Licious. And that's a good 7%. 7% for me is like my light beer.
That's
so
your
I will go,
beer.
Yeah, I'll drop below 10. But these are around the 7%. Founders makes an awesome Centennial IPA. Bell's is our state's award-winning beer for their Two-Hearted IPA. And that one is known nationally. We go to other states and we'll say, show us your best IPA, right? To the beer stores. And they'll go pull out a Bell's.
Yeah,
and we'll say,
that's awesome. It's not fun.
We're from that state.
Yeah, we want something local. We want something. That's what we usually do. We're like, what's your local IPA? That's what we like to try.
And Old Nation has come out with one of, even my brother, who's a super beer hound, says this is his top IPA. And it's one of the, as we call it, one of the muddy ones, one of the hazy IPAs. It's called Boss Tweed. Yeah.
That's my fave. I'll have to check that one out for sure.
Yeah. And anybody who gets a chance to go to Alpena, Austin Brothers, I recently discovered, because they're fairly new, their beers. I have not had a bad beer from them. Like if it says Austin Brothers on the label, I'll drink it. Because I know, even if I've never had it, I know I'm going to like it. I may not choose it, as a top beer, but their stuff is just all consistently great quality.
That's
so
awesome.
Those are my beer recommendations for Michigan.
Ooh, I love it. I'm going to be coming back and, jotting these down later. So
yeah,
maybe
I'll send you a care package.
Ooh, that would be lovely. That would be great. We could do a swap.
You betcha.
Yeah, Colorado has some great ones too. So
yeah.
Well, we'll switch over more into writing topics here, although that was really fun and the best part of my day. So what was the original inspiration for creating New Pages, and how did you guys really get it started?
Yeah, that is all to Casey's credit. And Casey Hill, who is the founder and the still, right, the manager and the editor for the top dog here, as we call him, the big boss at New Pages. But this was his idea. And I actually have this, which is, if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
A print edition of New Pages, which is all, I love showing this to students because it's like the old typeset, right?
Yeah, that's
on the
great.
inside. But this actually started probably 1979 when he was working at a bookstore and, was reading review publications and seeing that there were a lot of really great books that weren't getting reviewed. And they tended to be from small presses. They tended to be more radical, political, alternative titles, you know, but he said that they sell well, people were interested, but he just wasn't seeing them reviewed anywhere. And so he put together originally this review of some of these titles and had people writing those reviews, and then also putting together where can you find them, who's publishing them. And so it began as this print periodical that libraries would subscribe to so that they could learn about these new books, the presses, and then libraries could order those books into bookstores. So that was the original focus. Go fast forward to where, as you say, I started as a writer for him with the publication. I came in as an English major who knew about literary magazines and liked reading them, but could really only find them like in academic libraries on the shelves, and only a select few. And so he and I talked about that, and I said, well, let's look for more of these. Like, these are really cool, and there's really no way to find these all in one place. Like, how do you know all the literary magazines that are out there? So that started New Pages on Bend, and it just kept going down that road. And so it became much more about creative writing and creative writing publications, small presses. We added on, the bookstores had been there, the libraries, and then creative writing programs was one of our newer lists, undergraduate, graduate, creative writing programs in the US and Canada. So it just, based on the popularity of the people using the site for that literary content, we just began building more of that into the site. And in our most popular page, of course, is where you'll find calls for submissions, because writers are looking for places to publish. And although Casey's intention with New Pages was helping readers find good things to read, it shifted to being, a great deal more about writers being able to find places to present their works, submit their works. But yeah, the reading is still a big part of it, of course.
Sure, there's a huge crossover in that population,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
if you were to put it into a Venn diagram, the readers and writers would be, and poets would be like taking up the majority of the middle, and then you have your outlier, just your lovers of writing, who will come in and read. And there still is a great population. I think it's kind of interesting how people are like, oh, only poets read poetry, which is so not true.
Oh my gosh, no.
But, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Or my most, I was gonna say my most hated thing is when people say, oh, I hate poetry. And I'm like, it's just because you haven't found poetry you like yet. It's like, I said the same about red wine, like, ew, red wine, gross, until a friend of mine was like, try, this kind of red wine, try this kind of red wine, until I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, there are different types out there. Absolutely. Look at how we talk about beer, right? I mean,
right, exactly. And it isn't, poetry is similar, right? It's not an acquired taste. It's just finding the one that fits you. And I 100% agree with that. We've got such a spectrum of different types of poetry. You have slam or spoken word stuff. You have page poetry. You have traditional, contemporary, formal, so many different things. So, and I mean, people don't recognize how much poetry is really in their lives, which is, kind of part of my mission with some of my other, more regional projects. But so you have held several roles at New Pages over the years. And what's your favorite thing about being the editor-in-chief?
Some of what you said in the introduction, I teach, my teaching is full time. And for a long time on top of that, I was doing a lot of the work for New Pages with Casey. And to clarify this, we're married, right? So when people are like, wow, she talks about him like her boss, like, does he know she talks about him that way? It's like, yeah, he knows. So we got married. And so that's how he landed his editor-in-chief, and how, right, like, I moved up through it because I was doing all the work. He's the business side of it. He's always been the business side, and I have always stayed completely separate from the business side. I was always just about the content, and I didn't want money or a business model to drive the content decisions for the site. Now that might sound a little odd, but there are a lot, like we list literary magazines. Not everybody who's listed pays to be listed on our site. And that was the startup model. And there is a way that the site does generate revenue. But again, the intention was, if you're going to have a really great resource for people to come and use, you have to have really good content in that resource. It can't only be those who can afford to be in the resource. Like, then it doesn't function in that same way. So when I started, it was writing reviews. And then again, as I said, I started building some of that content and helping build the content. It just became bigger and bigger and more of a to manage, and I couldn't do it all. And so he did hire in, his 2 other employees who work for him. So that helped me move away from some of the tasks and move into, like, now, as we say, editor in chief. But that just leaves me responsible for some decision making, sometimes arguing about where commas go. And I manage the young writers page. So this whole life over here is very different from my teacher life. They do, like you say in that Venn diagram, they do intersect, they do cross over, but they feed such different parts of me and my interests, that's what I love about it. I've gotten to know writers and publishers and editors, and being an editor is a really unique role in the literary community. And so I really enjoyed that part of it. I don't profess to be a creative writer. I don't have a Master of Fine Arts. I have a Master of Arts in English. I don't seek to publish myself. I never really have. I dabble in it a little bit just for the experience. And I teach professional writing and publishing, but I don't pursue that. For me, it's just all about helping people connect and find what it is they're looking for. I mean, ideally, I think I'm a great researcher, and so are the people who work for New Pages, right? We're really good at researching. And as we do, we'll find something and think, oh, hey, so-and-so was interested in this. Oh, I got to make sure she gets this. And we're always making connections like that. And so the connectedness of New Pages, being able to help people connect with the resources and one another, all of this is incredibly important to me. And like I said, it just sort of feeds a part of me and my creativity in different ways.
That's awesome. I love exactly what you said there about, striking that balance, even though they're in the same realm, just a very, very different approach, and just the way you think about it and the work that you're doing is so different. I mean, I have that, I feel very fortunate to have like a wildly different day job, where I'm working in software and all this other, I mean, just wildly different. So when I, clock out for the day and switch gears over to, poetry and community and connectivity, and fun things like this, really just, it replenishes me. And it's great to have it be, so completely different. So I definitely appreciate, everything that you said there. So that's really great.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to see more of in the literary community? What do you feel like we're missing right now?
That's such an interesting question. And it comes at I think, a unique time. We're all going to be saying this too much, a unique time in our history.
Right.
But it is, because if there was one thing I think I would like to see more, it's more of a collective voice from us. We're a huge group of people. When I think about, sort of the joke about the master's creative writing programs being so full of students, like, and we're creating all of these creative writers, and how is there room for this much creative writing, and how many more books of poetry does the world need? And these are sort of like, fun philosophical questions. But when I think about that, in those conversations, there must be millions and millions and millions of us, but we're not a collective voice. I think we're lacking that. And it's not to say that we should all be thinking exactly the same way, of course not, or that we ever would, or, would want to. But when I just think about the value of literature in our society, why doesn't it have a greater place? Why doesn't it have a greater value? There's millions of us. So where is the movement for this? And how do we get that? How do we get there? Right. To show value for this part of our being human. and in creating these works. I just think that there's more that we could do to promote that and do that more collectively and more in unity with one another. And it's not taking a political stand in any way other than just being political for literature, you know, and the
Sure.
arts.
Yep.
So,
No, I agree with you 100%. That certainly is. It's funny how when you talk about read living poets, how
mm-hmm,
new that sounds to some people, you know, and that was my mission, you know, in living in Utah before I came here. I had some organizing that we did and some groups that we
mm-hmm,
started, some projects that really focused on, hey, there are living poets here in your state.
yeah,
Wake up,
yeah,
folks. You know, we're
yeah,
right here. We're
right,
creating today, you know. So no, I
yeah,
think that message is really important. And you know, supporting arts programming and really,
mm-hmm,
you know, nurturing that is something that, you know, we can all sort of push for. And
right.
I mean, to some extent we can vote for. So
I know.
I mean, it is
Yeah,
political, but
yeah,
truthfully,
yeah,
those programs are important.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if there was a vote, as a ballot, and just imagine a ballot and it just says poetry, I would vote for it. I mean, right?
Right?
Who wouldn't vote for poetry?
Yeah,
But
just
what does that mean? We've got to make it mean something. So yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. That's a
yeah.
great answer. What do you think has helped you most, like as a writer and teacher through this? Or I mean, what? I mean, when I say what has helped you most, also
Yeah.
like in thinking about new pages and what you've put into that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, I mean, sometimes I find myself going to my own website for information, right? Like, do you do that with new pages?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Constantly. Um, and I think that speaks to when I think about what helps me, you know, as a writer, as a teacher, as an editor, a connection is always going to be at the top of that list. Just
Mm,
being able to
yes.
connect with others. What a lot of what we do is very solitary.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't do it. We say this: we don't do it alone. Again, there's millions of us out there, and participating in it, connecting with others who are participating in it, creating a sense of community around what you're doing. I think that's a huge part of it. Not feeling alone all the time. We like to most of the time. Most of us are pretty introverted.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, we enjoy that space. But I think too, when I look at like what you're saying, I go back to my own website. When I go back to new pages, when I do, it's a process. Like writing is a process, teaching is a process, working on these websites, it's a process. There's a product, but just a whole new mentality sort of shift I've had recently is really focusing on the process,
Mhm.
and especially in education. Yeah, you got to give me that final paper. And teachers, every teacher I swear will tell you this who teaches writing, that the worst part of their job is grading. The part
Oh,
we love the
yeah.
best is writing with our students. We love working in the writing with them, going through the
Right.
process with them. And if that was it, like I get it, they have to show me a paper and they got to put the commas in the right spot. I understand. But it's that process. And I think with new pages, it's the process of building that site. And it's a living, breathing site. We keep it up. We keep it relevant and current. We're constantly
Yes.
going through and link checking on it and adding to it, right? It's not static. So it's almost like it's something you engage in, that process. And for our readers, anybody who uses our site, it's the same. Every time they come to the site, there's going to be something new and different there, right?
Right.
And so just participating in some way in that process, for other like writers too, participate with others in the process, get together with a writers group, and just write together, and share a little bit in those sessions, you know. For writers who, and I know this is part, especially for Telltale, I mean, you've got to share your writing with other people. You've got to get feedback.
That's
You've
right.
got to have that other perspective. You've got to workshop it. And you have to be receptive to feedback.
Yes.
um,
No, it takes practice, right? It really does. It takes practice and
mhm,
to be comfortable in that space and to find the people that you feel safe with.
yep,
It definitely takes practice, and building that community is how you get there, right? I mean, it's just like the
yep,
first time you step up to an open mic. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. And I'm
yeah,
an extrovert. Like I don't get nervous. Oh, goodness sakes, it scared me to death. And then the next few that I went to, I had a beer first. Little Liquid
Yep.
Courage helped a
Sure.
lot.
There you
And
go.
then, after I did it, a few times, I started to feel a little safer
Hmm.
in that space,
Hmm.
and there wasn't so much at stake. And the fact that I was creating and participating was more important, and that sort of fell away, right? I got some practice and I felt better about it. So I
Yeah.
100% agree. I mean, community is so, so, so important. And a lot of new writers that, hit the scene and they want to get published and they want to be, discovered. And, really it comes down to focusing on your craft, being a writer, evolving through this process that
Yeah.
you just spoke so well of. The
Hmm.
rest will come
Yeah.
organically. You don't have to
Yep.
chase it. I mean, you have to be active, but you don't
Yeah.
have to actively chase that pursuit.
Right.
You have to worry about your writing and your craft and really put your
Hmm.
time there. So
Hmm.
really,
Hmm.
I love what you said there. So
Yeah.
any specific advice for, folks who are new to the scene, for some of Telltale Poetry listeners?
Well, a lot of what we've said, which is, and I appreciate you saying it, like getting out there and just doing it, and doing it more than once. So get connected, find people to work with that you trust, and rely on them,
Mhm.
and participate. Really, really participate. It's not you're not going to be discovered without taking some action, as you said. And like I do, and I submit works, and it's more recently I've gotten to a point where I want to submit work, so I'm more actively looking for. It's a lot of work. It is a ton of work. And so if there's anything that you can do or people that you can work with who can help with that process, and expect that it's going to feel really awkward and time consuming, probably the first time through. But then
Right.
sort of once you get a hang of it, or once you get a system, or if you can get help from folks, like I know with Telltale, it's kind of a system. They've got a
Right.
platform and a program to work from that I think helps eliminate a lot of that uncertainty or fear, or just sense of, I don't even know how to begin this process.
Sure.
That's what it looks like they're there for, right? Is to
Yes,
help with
100%.
that.
Yeah.
So that kind of, having something like that is something to be take advantage of it, right?
Sure.
Participate in it. And even if it's just like, oh, you do it once and then you decide you can do it, on your own or a different way, that's fine. But at least it
Sure.
got you started, right?
Right.
Or it's something you stay with. So find something like that. Get out, participate. Just, you have to do it. You have to take risks.
You
And you have to
do.
do what's going to feel really uncomfortable,
Well,
to
and
get
that
yourself where
is
you want to be. Yeah.
participating, right? I mean, if you're
Mhm.
submitting your work, then you're working on your craft because you're trying to get something published. And it is
Yep.
sort of like a full circle process. Like we've been, process is the key word here today. And I
Yeah,
think it's
it is.
an amazing focus. So, and there are so many great resources, right?
Mhm.
And New Pages obviously is one of those. It's so well organized, like you said, it's so up to date all the
Yep.
time, which I really appreciate. Running my
Mhm.
own site,
Yeah.
and it's smaller, it doesn't have quite that many resources, but it is a consistent flow of just keeping everything updated as much as you can.
Mhm.
So there are, obviously, if you want to participate, you can pretty much find anything to lead you in the right direction on New Pages. So
Yep.
how can folks really sign up to get updates or follow you?
Oh, just go to the site. So www.newpages.com. That's nice and easy. And you can sign up we have a mailing list, which is, and it's just our mailing list for our newsletter. Katie puts together a newsletter each week and sends that out. And it basically says, here's what's new. So
Awesome.
folks who, because sometimes people say, I just kind of forget sometimes to come to your site. I totally get
Right.
it. I totally get it.
Sure.
Um, for everything that we're doing. But when you get that weekly reminder in the email, and there's sometimes I look at it, I go, I don't have time for it, click delete. I'm not reading this week's, but then the next week I'll have time. I don't put it together, so I actually read it.
Right.
So I
Right.
can see what's new on our site. So that's a great way to do it, is just come and sign up. There's no cost for it. There's no cost to use our site. And I think that that's a great way to get started, just with that, for the reminder, and then to see what's new. And New Pages is the kind of resource where you really come to it when you are looking for something, right?
Right.
Some people say they like to just browse through it, but more often it's you're looking for something, whether it's just, again, a new haiku to read or a place to submit a novel. The Young Writers Guides, that's another great one.
Oh,
So if
that's
you're working with,
awesome.
yeah, if you're working with
I
young
love
people
that.
at all, yeah, and those are my babies. Those are mine. I maintain them.
Right.
They're totally 100% ad free. I fight with the boss about that, but I insist that they be ad free. And it's a great way because it's the next generation, right?
Yes.
So get them involved too. And a lot of times it's through kids that adults find resources as well. So
Sure.
just being able to share it with others.
That's excellent. I love that you
Yeah.
focus on, I love that you have that young writers piece and that that's yours, that you own. And I think
Hmm.
it is really important. And I always get really excited when I find those resources too to share. So,
Yeah. Yep.
well, this has been awesome. It is
Yeah.
Friday, still pretty early in the morning, or else I would totally have a beer with you right now. I'm
Yeah.
going to do that later this evening for sure. But it was such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for spending time with
Yeah.
Telltale Poetry. And it's a great long weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend here,
Hmm.
and so hopefully folks have some downtime and can get some writing and some submitting done this weekend. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much again. And everybody, please check out all the great work that Denise and Casey are up to with newpages.com.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.